Today we are taking up Pippa Passes by Robert Browning. First, let's know a bit about Robert Browning. Robert Browning was born on May 7, 1812 in Camberwell, England. He died on 12 December 1889. In 1833, Browning anonymously published his first major work, Pauline, and in 1840 he published Sordello, which was widely regarded as a failure. He also tried his hands at drama, but his plays, including Strafford and the Bells and Pomegranate series, were for the most part unsuccessful. The techniques he developed through his dramatic monologues, especially his use of diction, rhythm, and symbol, are regarded as his most important contribution to poetry, influencing major poets of the 20th century like Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, and Robert Frost. After reading Elizabeth Barrett's poems and corresponding with her for a few months, Browning married her in 1846. Browning went on to publish Dramatis Personae 1864 and The Ring and the Book between 1868 and 69. The Browning Society was founded while he still lived in 1881. It was awarded honorary degrees by Oxford University in 1882 and the University of Edinburgh in 1884. Robert Browning died on the same day that his final volume of verse, Asolando, Fancies and Facts, was published in 1889. Now let's know a bit about Pippa Passes. Pippa Passes is a verse drama by Robert Browning. It was published in 1841 as the first volume of his Bells and Pomegranate series in a low-priced 2-column edition for 6 pence and republished in his collected poems of 1849, where it received much more critical attention. It was dedicated most admiringly to the author of Iron, Thomas Noon Talfourd. It is best known for the lines, "God's in his heaven, all's right with the world." This excerpt from the dramatic verse is by far the most famous passage. It's short to the point. Pippa's song is also alternatively known as The Years at Spring and can be found in Browning's verse drama named as Pippa Passes. It is about the natural world, its harmony, and God in heaven. It's basically a verse drama, as I mentioned before, and the poem has 4 sections to it: morning, noon, evening, and night, and they are linked by episodes that either comment on the preceding scene or presage the scene to follow. On New Year's morning, her only holiday for the entire year, the main character Pippa, the main character in the poem, Pippa, an impoverished young silk winder, sings as she wanders aimlessly. In each section of the poem, people who are at critical points in their lives make significant and far-reaching decisions when they hear Pippa sing as she passes by. So she is this young, blameless girl, and she is winding and moving around as solo and attributing kindness and virtue to the people she passes by. She sings as she goes, her song influencing others to act good and reminding them of the existence of a moral order. Pippa's song, if we see the background to it, there are these 2 characters, Sebald and Otaima, who discuss their affair and the successful completion of the murder of Luca, who was Otaima's husband. So although the poem is quite upbeat and optimistic on its own, when placed in context, it is much stranger, darker, and ironic. The themes at the heart of the poem is basically interconnectivity and the power of God. It's an 8-line poem and it is contained within a single stanza. The rhyme scheme is very simple. It is ABCD, ABCD, and we'll see that as we go through the text. The metrical pattern also is simple. It has 5 syllables, the majority of which are made up of 1 iamb followed by an anapest, or 2 unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. The first, second, fifth, and sixth lines are the best examples of this pattern in action. Browning makes use of several literary devices, and I'll be pointing that out as we go on through the poem. Anaphora is there, you have got examples of imagery, and I'll be pointing that out, and parallelism is also present there as we go through the text. Now, lines 1 to 4, I'll be taking that up first. The years at spring and days at the morn, mornings at 7, the hillsides new pearled. Now, if we look at line number 1 and 2, there is a repetition of the term at the, which is a wonderful example of anaphora, which actually means the use of the same style of writing in 2 interconnected lines or 2 lines close by. The years at spring, now we find that Pippa's song, the speaker begins by making several statements about the world. On their own, they are hard to understand, but after finishing the poem and returning to them, they make more sense. The speaker is celebrating how right the world feels in the moment. Everything is as it should be. The first line states that things are right. The first is the year, which is at spring. That's the most wonderful time of the year. It's likely meant to relate to Otima and Sebalt's murder of Luca also. Otima's husband, and their belief that things would now become all right and they can start a new life. That could be a second reference to the spring, presence of spring. The same feeling is carried over into the next line when the poet mentions days at morn. The following lines are similar, with the fourth line using a great example of imagery to depict the hills covered in pearl-like snow. It's a beautiful visual imagery where you can actually imagine the hills covered with dew. Now, it's also an example. It could also be a reference to new relationships which are going to be free of old restraints. So the years at spring, the best time of the year. Days at morn, that's also the best time of the day. Morning at 7, it's pleasant out there. The hillsides dew pearl, the whole hill is covered with dew, so everything is fine. Taking up lines 5 to 8, the lark's on the wing. So the lark is winging, it's flying away and enjoying itself. The snail's on the thorn. The snail is where it should be. It's on the thorn bush. God's in his heaven, and God is in his heaven. He is present there to see that nothing goes wrong with the world. Everything is as it should be because God is there in heaven to watch over everything. All's right with the world. And here also there's an example of anaphora in line number 5 and 6. If you see, there's a repetition of the lark's on the wing, the snail's on the thorn. So on the again, the same kind of structure we find here, and so that's also an example of anaphora. So we see that the speaker here talks about animals now, and talks about their understanding of the world, and in their context he talks about the rightness that is there in the world and that should be present in the world. The lark, a songbird, it's flying as is normal. The snail is on the thorn again as it should be. The animals, time of the day, everything else is exactly as it is supposed to be. The poem concludes with a reference to God who is in heaven. Without the context of the poem, these lines feel quite innocent, and it's easy to see why they were popularized. But if we see it in the context of the poem again, it seems to be very dark. But otherwise, they are very positive lines, and they give you a sense of security that since God is in his heaven, nothing can ever go wrong. Now, if you have any questions, you can post it in the segment below, and I will try my best to answer them. Thank you.